Hi guys. So in this project, we will be building a deep learning model that is to be trained on an image dataset which holds images of handwritten digits. We will then prepare our very own website that will be built using the Django framework and hosted on AWS. So let's get started. So I'm going to go through the contents of the project, which includes a brief introduction of what we are going to do in this project, then the models that we are going to build, creating our Django website right through the Django framework, and lastly, hosting this particular website on AWS. So in this project, as I told you, we will be developing a deep learning model that is to be trained on image dataset of handwritten digits. Now the dataset we have is the popular minced dataset to challenge deep learning algorithms to classify digits correctly. We pre-process the images through self-made functions with the help of OpenCV and PIL library to be fed into the model for training. Now, the PIL library, which is used for handling image data, is actually discontinued in Python 3. So we would be actually using a pillow library, which brings on the interface, which acts as an interface for the PIL library on Python 3. Right. We will then prepare our very own website that will be built using the Django framework, right? So in this, I would tell you exactly what the framework is about, how you create a website in it, right? Or with the help of it. And lastly, we will host our, Django built website on AWS. Now building the model. So we are building two models here, right? One is the baseline model and the other is the CNN model. Now convolutional neural network CNN is a powerful image processing model often used in computer vision that comprises of image and video recognition capabilities, right? Both of them are pretty accurate, right? Even the baseline that I had created was accurate, but you would be able to see some disparity in prediction power as CNN models are more complex and are able to understand and also process high informative data, right? Much better as compared to the base model. Since the base model which I have created only employs the dense layers with the sequential wrapper, right? So you would be able to see that even though there's not much difference in the accuracy part, but when it comes to actual prediction, CNN does perform much better. Okay, creating the Django project. Right. So Django is a free and open source web application framework written in Python. It includes advanced functionalities like authentication support, management, admin panels, contact forms. This is basically information coming from front end to back end, right? File upload system, and much more. So in other words, if you were creating a website from scratch, you would need to develop these components by yourself. But by using this framework instead, these components are already built. You just need to configure them properly to match your site. So I'm going to go in deep and talk about what exactly are we configuring, when are we writing code, when are we just calling out functions in Django, right? When we have already developed the model and have moved to the next step, that is creating our website. Lastly, we have the last stage or step in the process of building this project where we host the newly made website using the Django platform. We will be using the EC2 instance, right, which has the T2 micro instance for hosting the website and understand how exactly the virtual servers and the cloud system works. With this completed, we would be able to access our website and run the model from anywhere across the internet. So let's move forward to the first part now, which was building the deep learning model. So this is, or I would say this will be the first part of our project where we are developing the model, right? But before moving to development or even instantiating the models, we would first have to create our dataset or first create the dataset, then pre-process the information so that we are able to feed that into our model. Now, I'm gonna move forward with some of the scripts that I have written, right? which explains each and every process of getting the data set, of pre-processing the data set, and finally building and training the model, right? So I have a classifying handwritten digits project instantiated inside which I have kept my code. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is getting our data set. Right. So as I told you, I mean, minced data set is pretty popular. So even TensorFlow provides you the data set for that. But let's say that you don't want to load the data set from the TensorFlow library, then I can also provide you with a data set which would be in the NPZ format. So this is a NumPy format. Okay, so I can provide you with the data set also. So what you have to do here is, in this particular part of the code, you would have to set in the path where you have kept your minced code. Okay, so you have to give the path here, and what happens here is that the load data would call in the data from the path. When it gets the data, it would set the data into xtrain, ytrain, xtest, and ytest tuples. Okay, then you can start accessing your data set. So it would already create you with your training and testing data format, right? Which we use the train test split functions also, right? So this here helps in doing that specific functions work only. Okay, so before moving forward, let's just understand the libraries that we are using also, right? Because it is important to understand what these libraries are used for and why are we using them, right, in this project, right? And now, okay, so we usually have two libraries for developing deep learning models, right? That is the Keras and the TensorFlow library. Now, people sometimes, interchangeably uh, talk about Keras and TensorFlow, but these two libraries might provide you with similar functionalities, but they do not work similarly or they are not the same. Because Keras is a neural network library, which is an open source software library that provides a Python interface for artificial neural networks. Now, Keras acts as an interface for the TensorFlow library, right? These are separate things. While TensorFlow is actually an open source library for a number of various machine learning tasks or algorithms, which provides both high level and low level APIs, while Keras provides only high level APIs, right? So they are different things. Now, both of these libraries are used to create high-level deep learning models and to train and test them into different, using different metrics, right? So that is that. But the thing is, they are different, right? And nowadays, if you're using a very updated version of TensorFlow, then it already has a Keras embedded with it. So you don't have to, install Keras separately. Or if you want to build data sets, I would say if you want to build deep learning models, then you can directly just install TensorFlow. Then the next we have is the uh, matplotlib library, right? We have the matplotlib library, and this library actually stands for, how should I say this? Yeah, so whenever you have to create graphs, right? Whenever you have to plot something and want to use a specific GUI, you can go forward with matplotlib, because through this library, you can create different kinds of graphs like line graph, bar graph, pie charts, or even uh, heat maps or confusion metrics, right? So all of this can be developed through matplotlib, and this helps us in finding key information or extract particular inferences from your dataset. Now, as you can see, we have taken our data set, right, and here you would be able to see what is inside my xtrain, right, what is inside my independent features and what is inside my dependent feature, then the shape for that, and lastly I'm just plotting some of the images that we get. Since the dataset here actually holds numpy values, basically vectors, so we're trying to convert that vector into an image. Right? Since what we do is we have some images, we try to convert them into numbers using the RGB values or grayscales, right? So if you have a PyCharm IDE like me, all you have to do is just open the PyCharm IDE and get the project and run this dataset.py file. But before that, I have a requirements.txt file right here inside the my site folder. So in your you need to have this and run this onto your terminal so that all the packages and dependencies for this project are already installed. Else, when you run this file, you would be told that there's no TensorFlow or there's no matplotlib uh, in your system installed, and that would give you some errors, right? So now, if I just run this, so you would be able to see first it's gonna print the whatever things are inside the X train and the Y train, then it would print out the shape. So this is gonna give you a 3D shape, right? This is gonna give you a 3D shape. Okay, right. So here you can see I have my you can see I have a lot of values here, right? And then you can see the shape. Okay, this here is the y train value, which corresponds to that that the image we had was a handwritten 5, right? Then we have 60,000 28 dimensions for our numpy value or for our x train, right? Then we have the figures here. So I have printed 5, 0, 4, and 1. Okay. So yeah. Okay. So you can run this thing to see what this particular function is returning in your dataset, how it has been shown, and how you can even plot your numpy values again back to a image. Okay, so yeah, moving forward, the next thing is the image processing part, right? Since we have got our dataset now, we can work with image processing. So we would go to this image processing file now. Now in the image processing, we have created a function image prepare. Then we have the imports for PIL, that is again the pillow. So when let's say that you were to install the PIL package, so you won't say pip install PIL, you would say pip install pillow, because pillow is an interface for PIL now, and if you're working on Python 3, you would need to install pillow, and through pillow also will be installed, and you can use the particular library and its functions then. So the first, as you can see, is the PIL library and importing image and image filter functions, right? So as I told you, Pillow is built on top of PIL, right? Python image library, and PIL is one of the essential modules for image processing in Python. And through Pillow, we get more functionalities and we can run all major operations that can be performed on an image to pre-process it, to maybe extract information from it, right? It supports a wide variety of images such as JPEG, PNG, BMG, GIF, PPM, TIFF also, right? So all of these are image formats. So it supports that. So you can do almost anything on digital image using Pillow modules. Apart from basic image processing functionalities, the module also includes point operations, filtering the images using built-in convolutional kernels and color space conversions, which we are also going to use later in the image prepare function only. Then we have the TensorFlow library, which I have already talked about, right? Then we have the NumPy library, which stands for Numerical Python, which is a library consisting of multi-dimensional array objects and a collection of routines for processing those arrays. Using NumPy, mathematical and logical operations on arrays can be performed with ease, right? So if you were working on a list and if you were working on an array, you would, for a large data set, you would be able to see how fast the NumPy package or the NumPy library is able to, perform operations on the array as compared to a list. So the first function is the image.open, right? So image.open opens and identifies the given image file where we insert the path of the file, right? And if you have the L mode on, if you have the dot convert, and here we specify the L mode, there's a P mode also, there's RGB mode also. So the L mode means that it is a single channel image and it has to be interpreted as grayscale, right? So the L means that we just store the luminance of the image. Now what happens is that when we type in L, we want our data to be in black and white, right? We want our image to be in black and white, and we want to focus on luminance because black is going to give you very less luminance and white is going to give you a very large luminance value. So we want to focus on that only. So the data would be about luminance of the image, and that would be set inside the IM object of the image. Then we are finding the width and height of the image that we have, right? Okay, so before I move forward and specify what is happening here, why I have taken width greater than height, or even down, you would see there's the opposite case also, and then there you can see I'm resizing and stuff, and even see that there's a new image too. So the thing is, what we're trying to do here is that we open up a new canvas, resize the original image that I had as input to a dimension that I want, and then paste this resized original input image onto a new empty canvas. Lastly, I am getting the pixel values for this new canvas image and returning the values for using it as data to be fed into my model for prediction, right? So you can see that I have created a new canvas here, right? That is of the 28 into 28 pixels. Okay, and I have my new image, which is basically a blank, I would say a blank page of 28 into 28 dimension. Then I'm checking the width and height of the original image that I had from my data set. And if the height is greater, if the width is greater than height, then I am changing the height to a new height. Okay, then I'm resizing the image I have, and along with that I'm using anti-alias and filter.sharpen. So when we talk about anti-alias, right, so whenever images are resized, either enlarged or reduced, the image is interpolated, or the image data is interpolated based on the existing data in the image document. Anti-alias helps in providing the data and fitting the data into correct places so that when we enlarge and the information is limited, we can insert the information through interpolation, and anti-alias helps us in inserting correct information so that whenever we enlarge or whenever we resize, we do not lose information and our image does not even look like the previous image, right? Because whenever we enlarge, you can see that let's say we have a particular image that is of 400 into 400 pixels, and then we enlarge it into 800 into 800. You would be able to see that now you're able to see pixels. The image is not as smooth, I would say, as it should be, or it has to be. So anti-alias basically helps us in smoothing the image, right? So you just need to know that it helps us in smoothing the image so that even if we have limited information, we can have a particularly good image that can portray the information it was portraying before resizing, right? Then we have the image filter dot sharpen. Now this is to sharpen up the image so that the grayscale information of image we have is having high contrast between the blacks and whites in the image. Okay, so this is to if you have used a photo editing tool and have heard about contrast, right? Whenever you increase the contrast, you can see the colors have high contrasting them. Well, they are sharpened. Basically, you can see much distinction between the colors. You can see uh, that they are heightened in a way, right? So this is what sharpen is helping me do for my image. Now, this might not have made things clear. Please do search what does sharpening of an image mean? What does anti-alias do, right? But basically, and this was as clear as I could make about anti-alias and sharpening, right? And then, okay, so I'm just calculating the horizontal position because after resizing, the image also gets displaced from its original position. So I have to reposition it in the center of my canvas, right? Then I'm pasting my my original pre-processed image onto my new canvas. Okay, this is here. I'm doing the same thing, but here rather than changing or reshaping the height, I'm changing the width for the image. Similar stuff happening here, right? Then this is the part where I get my pixel values, right? So I had an image only till this point right here. Then through here, I get the pixel values for my image. Then I convert that pixel values and return the vector for my image. So you can see that I have, okay, so I have also, I have made a simple function, not even a function, but I have written a simple code snippet where I'm calling a particular image from my testing data, and okay, so you can see that in the image prepare, the image is sent, right? The path is sent, then the image vector is returned to me inside my var. So I'm just printing the var, the length of it, and the type of it. That would be a list, I think. Then I'm loading the models. I'm taking the baseline model right here, then reshaping it and getting the prediction. So you can run this one too. And after you run this, right? So the image is now getting pre-processed. Then the model is going to load. We're going to feed that pre-processed data into the model, right? And you can see here. So see here. Okay, this is giving me an error because I'm not using my GPU right now, or else my computer might get busted. Anyway, so we have first we're printing the var, right? You can see this is the var, which is a numpy array of 784 size, right? So you can see that here. Then this is the class list. Okay, it's printing right here, right? Then I have my prediction, which is giving me a value of 0, and you can see that this is actually a 0 image, right? So you can run this here, and with this we have also completed the part where we were pre-processing our image and getting the data which later on we would feed into the model. So in the next video I would start with developing our model and finally training those particular models. Hi guys, so here we're gonna start with the building of our baseline model and the CNN model, right, which is the other model we're gonna build. As I told you, both are good and accurate, but again, you would be able to see differences in prediction power when we're actually running those models to predict on our test data, right? So we have already talked about Keras, we have already talked about TensorFlow, what's the difference between them, which one we are using, why we are using, right? So now you can see I've again just loaded my dataset to get the training and testing data. And here what I'm doing is that you can see I am fixing the shape from a 28 into 28 to a 784 vector. So basically what I'm doing is I'm getting my 2D array to be a 1D array. Okay, so that is what I'm doing. You can see here with the help of the reshape function, I'm reshaping that, right? So it's done for both the training and testing data for my independent variables. Then I'm normalizing the inputs too. So not only just reshaping, I'm going to normalize that too from the maximum value, that is 255, since the values ranges from 0 to 255. Now the values are going to range from 0 to 1. Now I'm just hot encoding the dependent variable, right, which is 0 to 9, because I have to input that data into my deep learning model. So we use the two categorical function, right? And with using the method which is two categorical, a numpy array or a vector which has integers that represent different categories can be converted into a numpy matrix which has binary values and the columns equal to the number of categories in the data. So since I have, let's say that, since I have values from 0 to 9, I would actually, for my first row, let's say the value was 0. So I would get 1, comma 0, comma 0, comma 0, comma 0 till, so this, there are going to be 10 values in this particular row where 1 is defining that for the 0th column, the value is 1, meaning the original value was 0 in my column, right? And the rest are kept as 0, telling that only 1 was, sorry, only 0 only 0 was to be present, right? Let's say that I have to represent 1, then the 0th column is going to be 0 and the first column is going to be 1, right? So this is how the values are created for my one hot encoding through two categorical, right? Now we are defining the baseline model here. So I have the sequential wrapper and using two dense functions, okay? And now you can see that after compiling we are using the optimizer Adam and we are using the metric accuracy, which is not the best metric when we talk about classifications, but yeah, it gives a pretty good understanding of if your model is working as expected or not, if it is giving you a good accuracy or not, right? Then we're saving the model in the model slash, again, the models directory, which you can see here, right? Then I'm building the model now. So I'm fitting my data, right? So this is the training process. I'm using 10 epochs with a batch size of 200. And then I'm just evaluating my model through the model.evaluate function, that is giving of the value and score and printing that score value. This is, which is, content out is how I would load my model, right? Since we have already saved our model here. So if I have to use this model somewhere else, so this is the code through which I can load my model later on. So you can simply again just run this file, and you would be able to see that after our pre-processing and everything, we get we get the we okay. The most important part is that here you can see that I haven't used the image prepare, right? You can see in this whole code I haven't used image prepare function anywhere, right? You can see that there is no image prepare here, and even the models2.py, which has the CNN part, and you would see that there's no image prepare present there. So what is happening right now? So the thing is, we already get the NumPy values from our minced data set, but in actual case scenarios, we would be only getting an image, right? So when we are building our website, we would not be sending we would not be sending NumPy values, right? Because obviously a user will only have image to be provided. So for that, to convert that image data into NumPy values, we created the image prepare function, which again you would see in your code where we are actually where we are actually building the website. But since our original dataset already had NumPy values, we haven't used image prepare right now, right? So keep this in mind. Okay, this is important. So this was the part where we have created our baseline uh, model using the dense layers. Then coming to our convolutional neural network. So CNN again is a powerful image processing tool or deep learning algorithm to classify, to to be used in video recognition. They are used in recommendation systems also, and natural language processing algorithms too. Right. So we add the first convolutional layer, right? And to have that convolutional layer working properly, we specify some arguments. Actually, there are 5 arguments. We would be specifying some of them, right? So let's just discuss the arguments and their purposes in that. Now, before moving to that, you can see that I have just called on max pooling and conv2d, right, for my convolutional neural layer. But the rest of the processes are same. We're just reshaping the data, but now we're reshaping in a 4D format, right? Before it was a 1D format from 2D, so we are formatting that into 4D now, which has uh, the number of rows, right? Then we have 28 by 28 and then 1 for my 4D, and those are converted into float type values. Then again, just normalizing the data, auto encoding the values, right, creating my CNN model. Now here you can see that I'm adding the 2D convolutional layer, and there's some parameters or some arguments which I've given. So the first argument is the filters, which has the primary purpose for convolutional layer to find features in the image using a feature detector, then put them into a feature match which preserves distinct features of the image, right? So that is that. Then we have the kernel size. So kernel size refers to the filter matrix size. Here we are using a 5x5 filter matrix, right? Which you can see here. Then I have the input shape that has to be given. So this is specific to the data that you're inputting, right? Then we have the activation layer, right? We have the activation layer specified, and though there's another parameter which is padding, which is a little complex to understand, but in simple terms, this tells that here the output image will have the same dimensions as input image when moving through the layers. But the thing is, we are not using that here because first, our data is not so big, not so complex, right? So we won't be using that here. Then we are using the max pooling 2D with a pool size of 2 by 2. Then we are flattening the uh, data that we get here. So flattening means we are reducing the dimensions for it and then adding the dense layer, right? Then the last dense layer has the activation function softmax. So this is going to help us in predicting the class for the data. And I'm just compiling using the same optimizer and metric, and again saving the model in the same format. Then we build our model, train our model. Here again I'm using uh, 10 cycles only, 10 epochs only with the same batch size, and getting the evaluation scores and just printing that. Again, this is the same, so that if I have to run my CNN model somewhere else, we can just import the load model function and then use the function to uh, create an object for our model, right? So with this part, we have also completed the uh, step of building and training the model, right? Now you can either use the baseline model or you can either use the CNN model. Both are good enough, but one thing to note is that CNN models again are complex models, so this would put strain on your machine whenever you're running the model, right? So if you have a powerful machine, do run the CNN model. If you don't have a powerful machine, you can run the baseline model, right? So with this, we have completed the first part of the project, right, where we were gonna develop the model and train our model. Now we will be moving to the second part, which is the creation of our website through the Django framework. Hi guys. So in this video, we will start with the development of our website using the Django framework. So before we move forward and understand what we're going to do, let's first see what Django is about. So Django is a free and open source web application framework written in Python. Now a framework is nothing more than a collection of modules that makes development easier. They are grouped together and allow you to create applications or websites from existing source code or from existing source or build applications or sub applications instead from scratch. So this is how websites, even simple ones designed by a single person, can still include advanced functionalities like authentication support, management, database management, forms, file upload system, and more. So in other words, if you were creating a website from scratch, you would need to develop these components by yourself. But by using the Django framework, we don't have to create everything from scratch. We can use the existing pre-built functionalities that Django provide and just set them up in a manner so that they work in a fashion that we want them to. Now Django has a model template views architectural system that keeps in mind the requirements of the front end and database management for a developer. We will see what this architecture means and how it makes things easier for a developer in the in this video or most probably in the next coming video. Moving forward, let's see how to instantiate a Django project, right? Note you don't have to run all the commands that I'm gonna specify right now, right? Since the project is already created. But if you want to create the website or if you want to create the project from scratch, then you might need to run all the, or you might need to go forward with all the steps that I've specified right now. So I would be talking about uh, I would be talking about the situation where you want to create the project, and I'm going to talk about what steps are needed to be taken if you just have to configure the project that I'm going to provide you, right? So let's go forward with the first type where we have to create the project by ourselves, right? Then the first thing to do is create a virtual environment, right? You might have done this even before this, where you were running your, you know, these files, image processing models one, right? So if you haven't done this, no problem. Just create a virtual environment. If you're using an IDE like me, right, then there might be an option for creating the virtual environments. In PyCharm, what you have to do is click on File, click on Settings. Inside settings, pop-up will open. You need to go into the project, then click on project interpreter. Inside the interpreter, there's an option of settings button where you can click on add. Then in add, it would give you an option of using a new, creating a new environment or using an existing environment. So you can make your environment here, then click on OK. So I've already created one. So it was not giving me an option of creating a new one in the same place where an existing one is already present. So once you have done that, click on apply and OK. So say your virtual environment is now ready. You can even create a virtual environment from virtual env, right? You don't have to use the IDE per se. Then the next thing to do is install Django. So you need to run a particular command that would be pip install Django and the version for that. So I'm using 3.2. Okay, so I'm gonna run this one. So you have to run this command. So once you have done that, then the next thing to do here would be uh, yeah, run this command right here, Django admin start project. So this instantiates a particular project for you, right? So this is Django command. So if we move, yeah. So I named my project my site. So this particular directory right here was created, inside which another my site directory would have been created, and you would be able to see some of the files right here. Right. You might not see the storage backend and the .env ones. So this file is not really required for this project. I was just testing something. Sorry. Right. But you would be able to see WSGI, URLs, settings, ASGI, right? So you would be able to see all of these files. Now these files are really important because these files configure how exactly your Django application is going to run, right? Or behave for that matter. So once you have created this, you have to run this command pip install r requirement.txt in your terminal. So in your terminal, go to the directory where requirement.txt file is present, which is inside my site directory. Then run the command pip install -r requirements.txt. This file has all the packages and dependencies stated out, and this helps Python in understanding that these packages are required by your code base to run smoothly. So it installs all the requirements, or it installs all the packages and dependencies. Then you have to run this command python manage.py start app, name of the app, right? So once you run this, so I have given the name as polls for my app. So you can see this directory here was created, and you can see that this has different, this has different structure in and other files as compared to my site. So the difference between a project and a app is that project is used to configure how your Django application is going to work, if it is going to be connected to other applications too, so how it will be connected, what are the specs, right? If your system wants to use a cookie system, if your system wants to have some cache, so all of that is set up in your settings.py file. But your apps are to create additional functionalities onto your project which Django might not provide, right? So you create apps to add on new functionalities onto your website that you want, okay? So that is for the apps part. So once you have created apps, you would see something like this, right? I've named it polls, you can name it anything. Then in the settings, okay, so next thing is to go into the settings.py file and set things up there, right? Configure things there. Then once you have run this command too, you have to run another command, that is python manage.py migrate. So it might ask you to run another command, which is make migrations. If it is asking you to do that, then please do run the make migrations command first, then run the migrate command again, right? So this is to set up any existing or pre-built tables that is required by the Django, or that is created by you and is to be required by you, right? So we have to run this command. Then the last command is python manage.py run server, which we will see in the later part of this video or in the next video, right? Now coming to the second part, where let's say you just have to configure this existing code base, right? So you need to just create a virtual environment, then jump on to this part. You just need to install the requirement.txt file. Do note that you have to run this command in the terminal where the requirement.txt file is present. So it is present inside the my site directory, right? So if you're inside the project directory, then don't run this command because it won't be able to find the requirement.txt file. Then the next thing to do would be again this part where you have to run the migrate command. It might ask you to run the make migrations command first, so do run that one, then run the python manage.py migrate command, right? So this is how you would be able to configure your site. Now coming back to the settings.py file, what changes what changes we have to make here. So you can see that I have my settings.py file. Now this file has a lot of again, as the name suggests, it has a lot of settings. and there is a lot of variables instantiated. You can make changes in those variables, which would specify how the Django application is going to work, how it is going to behave with other applications, right? But I would go forward with the important ones. So we have the secret key, which is unique to each Django project. Again, as the name suggests, it has to be kept as secret. So what we have done is we have kept this secret key in a particular place and we are calling it out from there. I would talk about what is happening here in just a minute. Then we have the debug, right? This was my own created variable, so you can ignore this part, but this is the important one, a debug. So when it's true, any error that your code might, might uh, showcase, that would be showcased on your front end too. So when debug is turned true or is turned on, any uh, error or any information can be shown to the user when he is accessing the site. But if it is turned false, right? If it is false, then the user will only see a particular message like there's some internal error or the error code is this, right? They won't be able to see where the error is happening, what has happened, right? So that information is cascaded or that information is uh, hide it from the user, right? So you can see that there's a security warning. Don't run the debug. Don't run your code in production with debug turned as true or turned on. So you can even see that. So Django by default runs on the port or connects to other application on the port 8000. So you can even override that to connect on port 8080, right? So this is how you're able to configure or change how Django is going to behave. Then we have the allowed hosts, which specifies which machine this Django application can work, right? We have the installed apps. So here you can see that we already have some pre-built apps, right? We have the admin, authentication, sessions, right? So Django creates pre-existing code and instantiates that code along with the project, so you can run these functionalities, or you can add on the functionalities by simply calling out functions or classes from these particular apps. Then we have specified our own app, right? So this is the app where we're going to add on our additional functionality of classifying image data. Then we have the middlewares. So Django also prepares and handles middlewares. There's a security middleware, session middleware, CSRF view middleware. So this is about the CSRF tokens, right? Then we have the templates, right? So we talked about the model views, templates, architectural system, right? So templates is nothing but uh, anything that is served to the user, right? When he or she hits a particular URL. So the front end or the pages, like all of that is considered to be templates in Django. Whenever you type in a particular URL, you are able to see a page, right? So that page is what we call templates. Then we have the database. If you want to connect a particular database, then you can do that from here. Now you can connect external application like MySQL or Postgres, or you can use the SQLite 3, which is provided by Django only. As you can see, Django.db backend is providing you with SQLite 3. So I'm going to use this only. Then there's some uh, other variables too, which are handling things for Django. And the last one is this, which is the media URL. So this means that okay, so this means that you are specifying on which link and inside your code where you want to save your image files, right? Because unless we save the image files at a particular place, we won't be able to call that out and feed that to the model, right? So media URL is set to locate the image and showcase the image to a user onto the browser, and media root is to create a folder where all the files will be saved. So you can see that I have created the path where it should be saved, that is inside poll/images. So you can see that once any image is inserted by the user on the front end, this image directory will be created, inside which another image directory is created, and you can see the files are present here, right? If this folder is already present, then what Django will see is that, oh, this folder is already present. I just need to insert the image here. So it would just insert the image here. Okay, so this is how it's working. So in this way, we are able to set up how exactly the Django application is to work with, what other application it has to work, right, and what all it has to handle inside the website. Then next we're going to talk about is the model template views architectural system only, right? How it makes things easier for a developer. But I think it would be better to, specify what we're going to do in each part, the model, the views, and the templates, and how they are coexisting with each other. So I'm going to specify that and explain that to you in the next video. Hi guys. So we're going to start with understanding what model views template architectural system is in Django, right? And one little heads up that I forgot about the os.environment.get thing, right? What exactly are we doing this, right? Why are we doing this? What is happening here? So I talked about secret key, right? That you have to keep this as secret. So any sensitive information that you have on your website that you do not want to show to anybody, for that matter, even the developers, what you can do is uh, you can create a .env file, right? So what happens is that you have a .env file with you, as I have here. You can put your sensitive information here, which is now not so sensitive, but you can keep that here and call those through the os.get environment. Basically, what is happening here is that once your code is run, the load.env function loads all of the information from the .env file to the system variables. Then this .environment.get from the OS gets all the system information that is required through the key values, and it stores the value here, right? So a key value data is inserted in your system variables, then you call out those information from your system variables through the key, and then the value is pasted here inside your system, secret key or your DNS or your IP address. So all of this information can very easily be called out from system variables. Now, even if somebody has the access to your code, he or she would not be able to get the information, right? Unless they are able to hack into your system too. Now that is very hard to do so. Uh, you might be thinking that we have the .env file, right? If somebody has the access to code, they would be having the access to the .env file too. But the thing is, we delete the .env file once we have run the code and the information has been sent from the .env file to the system variables. So that is how we are able to keep our secret or sensitive information a secret only, right? Now coming back to the architecture system, we have the views, we have the models, and we have the templates. You can see the templates has HTML files in it. Okay, right, we have the HTML file right here, which has some CSS parts and this. So what I'm doing here, I'm giving you a link where you can upload the file, and after you have uploaded the file, you would be able to see what the result was, what the classification was for the image, right? So this is what all is happening here, right? This is just CSS part, okay? And in the upload file, yeah, so in the upload file, you can again see a lot of CSS happening. Then I created a form which is having a method post, and in type of multi-part form data, right? And then you can see something as form.asp. So I would be talking about that in just a minute. And the last thing you can see is the button, right, for submission. So what happens here is that I have created a forms. Okay, I have created a forms which is taking the input from my model. Now model is nothing but tables. Okay, these are tables which store values. If we go to the models part, you can see I've created a table. Now this table has these columns right here. The first column is image ID, second column is image name, third column is date when it was uploaded, and last is the file, right? So we have a auto field. So what happens is that whenever a data is inserted, the image ID is automatically created and is updated here, right? Then we have a delete function too. So what happens is that if I call the delete function from somewhere specifically, it would delete all of the data that I have input. Let's say that I have four rows in my table which has image ID 1, 2, 3, 4. So I say that delete image ID, delete the data which has image ID 1. So it would delete that from my table. So for that we have created the delete function here. So what happens is that in the forms, I specify which data is to be taken from the user. So you have to take the image name and the file, right? Because in the models, this is automatically updated and this is also automatically updated. So the only thing that we need is the image name and the actual file. We have set this up to where it has to store. So that is why in the images folder, we have another image folder where all of it is stored, all of the files. So in forms, we give the fields which has to be input by the user, right? Which has to be input by the user, and we tell that which model are we referring to. So this is the forms part. So with the help of that, we call out the forms, and ASP gives the reference of what has to be stored by the user. Okay, what has to be input by the user, which you would be seeing in later in this video, because I'm gonna show you how the pages are, reacting on which URL, what is happening. So this is the models part, right? Now you have even also seen the templates part. So you can see how the templates and model are codependent on each other, right? So you have created your tables, then through your forms, you are taking input from your user through the templates, which is nothing but the HTML pages, right? Now coming back to views. So this was the third part of our architectural system, right? Now you can see that I've created some functions, right? So any function that is taking request as a parameter or argument is, sorry, that's better. Yeah, handler function that is taking the parameter as request, right? So the thing is, any function which takes request as the parameter is a function which is mapped to a particular template in your Django application. Meaning, this function corresponds to or responds to index.html page. So whenever I run this function, this index.html page is going to be rendered. Then whenever I run the uploading function, this upload.html page is going to be rendered, right? So each function which is taking the request parameter is mapped to a particular template, right? So whenever you run this function, that particular template is going to be shown to the user. But you might be able to see that though I have created a lot of functions here, but there's no function call for it. So how are they being called? So the thing is, we create a urls.py file, right? We create a urls.py file. Here we map on which URL, which function has to be called. So you can see that on the path home, we're going to run the handler function. On the path home/upload, we're going to run the uploading function, right? Now, when we talk about path, the actual path is when we are running on localhost, the path would be 127.0.0.1, 8000 port, slash home. So this is going to be the actual URL onto which if a user goes, the Django application understands that I have to run the handler function. So in views, handler function is called, and then it is able to understand, oh, I have to render the index.html page. So the user is able to now see the index.html page on the particular browser. Then what is happening inside the handler function? You can see that I have my model, right, that I created, which is taking some objects. So what I'm doing is that once a user goes to the index.html page or goes to the particular URL which calls the handler function, this index.html page is shown to the user. Then the user inputs the data. That data is stored in my models. Then I'm calling the model to now show me the data that was input by the user, and then I am using or manipulating the data to get the result, right? So this is how we are going through the model template views architectural system, where you go on the browser, you type in the URL, a page is shown to you which is rendered through a particular function in the views. Then through the template or through the page, you are able to input data. That data is stored in the models. Then through the models, you're again calling that data in the same function, right? In the same function in the views, and then you're manipulating or getting your results. And lastly, whatever result you have is now showcased in the front end by sending that data back to the front end, right? So this might not have given you a very clear cut image of what is happening here, right? So let me just run the local server. Let me just run the local server and show you what is happening. So you can see that in the predicting function, I'm actually using the baseline for now. You can even use the CNN model. I also have that in the code, right? So once you run the run server command, it starts a local server on your machine so that you can view how your website is working. So it performs a system check. Once the system check is performed, it shows you the localhost URL. You can click on this, right? You can click on this, and you will not see any page right here because we haven't mapped any function to this particular URL. But when we go to the home, you can see that the page is now loaded. Then you click on upload the file. You type in the name for the image. This is by default. You choose the file, right? If you choose the file, yeah, 6 here, then click on submit, and it would run, and it would give you the output. Yeah, the digit is 6 here. So this is how, we have the templates taking the data, run through the views, then sends the data to the backend. The backend inputs the data into the models again, the views take the data from the models, inputs in some other functions which is predicting and getting you the results. Then you just show the results back through the backend to the front end through the context, which is nothing uh, but the response right here. Okay, so context is just a dictionary through which you send in the data. So this is how your Django application is working, and how model views template architectural system handles even the needs of the database development or management and the front end part. So with this, we have completed the second part also. But before ending this video, I'm going to talk about uh, one particular topic, which is the cache system. So I've also created, uh, okay, maybe I haven't created the cache. Yeah, so I haven't created the cache system right here. And what you can do is that there's also a cache system. So what happens is that if you run that particular system on your Django application, then you won't have to load the model again and again in your code. So what happens is that the first time the project is run, the model will be loaded and it would be sent into the cache. So the next time you refresh your site or you restart your application, right, then the model would not be loaded again and again. It would be simply called from the cache. But the thing is, the cache system does not handle .h5 files. It can only handle pickle files. So you have to save your model in the pickle format, for which I have also given you in the models part a baseline pickle object, right? So you can use this one and create your cache system and store this baseline.pickle file in the cache system. Right, so this is how things are working, right? Now, I've also created a delete object.py file, as you can see. So if you let this function be, if you just call this function out, it is going to delete all the objects or all the information from your tables. So you might want to do this if you were, you have run your project a lot of times to test it out, and it has a lot of information in your tables. It has a lot of information or images inside your image directory, right? If you want to delete all of that, you can just run this command and delete the image directory here. Then you push the code into the AWS VM and instantiate or configure the project there and run the project again. So that is for this this particular function was created for that only. Right. So I'm going to close this part also, right, since we have already created our project. And in the next part, I'm going to talk about the AWS, the services they provide, and how do you host your web application that you have created now onto AWS using the EC2 instances. So see you in the next video. Hi guys. So in this video, we're going to start with the hosting process to host our Django build website. Now for hosting the website we have developed, we will be using the AWS services, particularly the EC2 service. Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud, which is also known as Amazon EC2, provides scalable computing capacity in the Amazon Web Service Cloud. Right. Now, these are some of the features that you must know about the EC2 that it provides, right? Now, we know that it provides pre-configured templates for the instances. These are known as Amazon Machine Images, AMIs, that have the package or the bits that is required by the server to run smoothly, right? Say the operating system, additional softwares, maybe installed Python, right? So are the all of these are the packaged bits that might be required by you to run your VM smoothly and even run additional your own programs onto the VM or inside the VM. Now, they provide various configurations of CPU, memory, storage, and network capacity for your instances, right? So they have created different type of instances which have different configurations for the CPU, memory, or storage. Then they provide you with the login information which is secure, right, using key pairs. Now this is important because we too are going to create a key pair that will help us in logging into our VM through basically remotely. We are gonna, you know, to remotely access the VM, they would provide a key pair that would act as a username password. Then they provide storage volumes too. They provide persistent storage volumes too that are using the Amazon Elastic Block Store, right? Also known as the ABS volumes. Then they provide you with a firewall that enables you to specify the protocols, ports, source IP ranges that can reach your instances using security groups. So again, this is important too because this security groups actually come under the network security groups, and we have to configure them, or uh, in a simplified manner, we have to add some rules so that our application is able to connect to the VM, and then the VM is also able to stay connected with the internet. Right. Now let's start with the process of actually instantiating our EC2 instance. Now, if you log in into your account, you would see a dashboard, right? That would show you AWS Management Console, and there in the search bar you can type in EC2. Now the first service that they provide, click on this, and then yeah, so it would take you to your dashboard for EC2 instances created, right? Now they would uh, list out all the instances that I have created. So these are the number of instances I have created, right? Then for you, you might not be having any instance created right now. So what you can do is just click on launch instance, and in the launch instance, it would ask you to choose an AMI. So now, as I told you, Amazon Machine Images. So we can see that there are multiple OS that they provide you with, right? So when I go forward with the Ubuntu server, right? Ubuntu server 20.04 LTS, and select that for the 64-bit x86. Okay. Now they would ask you which type of instance you have. You want. So you can see there's a type. We have number of eCPUs, number of RAM, then EBS type, instance storage type, network performance, how good it is, if it is supporting V6, IPv6, right? Now you can see that this one is in the free tier also. For the rest, you might be charged. But if you created this account just now, then you have some free credits that AWS provides you, right? You can use that too, so you won't have to pay. But again, it depends on the application you're trying to deploy. For us, even the T2 micro is pretty good because we are not having application which requires a lot of CPU power or requires a lot of RAM, right? So we can go forward with T2 micro only. You can choose any one of them. You can even scroll down and see there's T3, T3A, C4, C4. Okay, anyways. And next you can click on, either you can review and launch from here only, or you can go to next, which is configure instance details. If you want to, uh, if you want to tailor out your instance, like you want to run two instances rather than one, or maybe you want to use an existing subnet or network that you have created before, or you might want to have an hostname type, different hostname type, or even you can scroll down and see all the other options they provide you. Then you can click on add storage, which is the next option. Now by default they provide you with the 8 GB storage, right? And you can see that the free tier eligible customers can go up to 30 GB, right? But after that they might be charging you for the space that you are using, right? Then you can click on add tags. Then you can, okay, so in add tags we basically tag the instance. Let's say that I have to create two instances for machine learning, two instances for uh, to host some website. So I would create two tags, machine learning and website. So I would say, for instance, 1 and 2, I would tag them as machine learning. So I would know that these instances are running some kind of machine learning program inside that, right? So this is what the tags helps us in. Then we have security groups. So here you can even directly add a rule, or you can let it say as it is, and we can later on go and add a new rule to it. Okay, both are fine. Then you can just click on review and launch. It would show you all the selections that you have, for your instance detail, for storage and etc. You can go through that and click on launch. Then it would ask you to select an existing key pair or create a new pair. You have to create a new pair, and you have to keep the key pair type as RSA, and then name the key pair something like image dj2, and just download the key pair somewhere. Okay, then it would, once you have downloaded, it would give you the option of launch instance. So click on the launch instance. Now I won't be doing that because I've already created one, so I already have a key pair too. But for you, go through this process and do get the key pair saved in a directory which you can access and remember. Okay. Now coming back to your dashboard for EC2 instances, once you click on launch in the last part, it would again redirect you to here only, and it will also show you the instance and the state for that. So once the state is running, like this is the instance I'm using. Okay, this is the instance I'm using, right? So you can see that there's detail where you can see public IP4, IPv4 address, private one, public and private one. Then there's VPC subnet, and we go to security. There's a security group to inbound rules, outbound rules, right? So before moving forward, let me just tell you what exactly are these terms, right? Now, public DNS is actually DNS, that is domain name system, and is a standard by which names used on the internet are resolved to their corresponding IP addresses. This means that let's say we go to www.example.com on the web. What happens is that there is a structure defined where for example.com the structure looks for the particular IP, since each name is mapped to a unique IP. So it would search for example.com and see which IP is mapped to this. Then the structure is able to understand that this particular IP is mapped. So it returns that to the server, and the server understands that somebody is trying to access me. And if he has the connection authority, then I will send back the information which is required. So this is how when you go to, let's say, google.com, then through the browser you are able to get back the page that Google servers send to you from their servers, right? So this is what DNS is helping us. Rather than directly writing IP addresses on the URL, you are able to write example.com, google.com, right? Which is a little easier to understand for the user too. Then uh, let's talk about the inbound and outbound security rules. A security group is something that acts as a virtual firewall for your EC2 instance to incoming and outgoing traffic. Right. Now you might be thinking what exactly is incoming and outgoing traffic. So the thing is, uh, inbound means incoming connections to your EC2 instance from anywhere across the internet, right? Or from anywhere specific to your particular network. So if you add inbound rules, that means that you're trying to filter out who can access or who can connect to your EC2 instance. Similarly, outbound means outgoing connections to, from your EC2 instance to anywhere or anyone across the internet. So that here what you're trying to do is you're adding rules so that you are able to tell that EC2 you can connect with this person, with this person, with this person, but you cannot connect with that person, right? So these rules are created for security purposes also, and more so for connectivity purposes as to who can actually connect to or connect from your EC2 instance, right? So here we have the security group which is handling my inbound and outbound rules, right? As I talked about before, we will be making changes here to add on a rule so that our EC2 instance is able to access the Django application, right? But before that, let's understand what is VPC, that is virtual private cloud, because this is also important. Now, mm, okay. Uh, you can think of VPC like an apartment where your few furniture and items are analogous to database and instances, right? The services that we are going to use. And the walls of your apartment isolate and protect your things from being accessible to other tenants, right? Similarly, the VPC acts as an apartment which has some walls, rules, which are separating out your different services that you're using inside your network, right? So Amazon provides you a private network for you. Inside that, you are using some of these services. So these services, as to those services, do not mingle with each other. we have VPC setup, which separates out each and everything, right? Isolates them and uh, helps in not the mingling process of those uh, services on your AWS cloud, right? So that is what is done here. Okay, so moving forward to security groups. So click on security groups, right? Then you can see that we have the inbound rules, outbound rules, and tags. So I ignored the tags one. But the thing is here, you have to click on edit inbound rules. Then you have to click on add rule. You can even see that I've already created a new inbound rule, but just to show how we are creating one, you can just click on add rule, name it anything, or let it stay as it is. Okay, so you can't name it anything here, but you can write in the description. Then let it be custom TCP, right? But in the port, uh, put in 8000 because Django works on port 8000, so it accepts connection on 8000 port only. Then in custom, go to anywhere IPv4, right? Then the description you can just write Django or something, and then you can just click on save rules. But I already have one, so this is not required, right? We have not made any changes. Anyways, so this is how you can uh, add on a custom TCP connection support for Django, right? Then you can go back to your instance, and in the instance, go to details. In the details, now the thing you need to look out for is the public IPv4 address and the public DNS, right? These are important because you have to copy paste these values and put them inside your .env file in the code, right? You have to make changes there because this thing changes each time you restart or shut down your instance, and particularly this won't be the same for any two people across the AWS platform, right? So you have to copy paste both of these and put them in your code there. Right. So, okay. So we have covered the part where we are able to instantiate our VM, configure the VM, at least the rules for the VM. Now the next part would be where we actually transfer our files into the VM, set up the project inside the VM and run the project inside the VM. Right. I would be covering that in the last part. That would be the next part only. And before ending this video, I would be suggesting you to download three softwares, right? Download and install three softwares. The first is WinSCP. Download this because this software right here helps us in transferring our files from our local machine to our VM. Then download and install Putty. Right. This is a free SSH telnet client for Windows. Then install Putty Gen. Right. So this is the third and the last software that you need to install, which is the uh, Putty Gen software, which helps us in creating our password. Actually, modeling our password, we have already created one when we were downloading the key pair, right? So it helps us in modeling the password. So download this and keep them installed so that in the next video when I'm going through how exactly are we going to shift our code base and set the code base inside the VM, we're going to use all of these softwares we have just now specified. So see you in the next video. Hi guys, so let's start off with the process of transferring our file and setting up our code inside the VM. Now the first software that we're going to use is the PuttyGen software, right? So we're going to run the software, and here it is going to show you the actions that to generate a public private key pair or to load an existing private key file. So we're going to click on load, and we're going to browse through the wherever we have saved our file, and okay, it's not saved here. Widgets, where is it saved? Okay, yeah. So the thing is, when you would have downloaded the key pair file, it would be a PEM file. Okay, so you have to select your PEM file and you have to click on open. Okay, then you have to click on save private key. You have to click on yes, and then you can save it anywhere that you want. But you can see that I've already created a private key for myself too. So this is a ppk file, that is putty private key file, right? So I have already have one. You just need to type in the name and click on save, right? So once you have created your private key too, now we can start off with the transferring of file process. So what you have to do is just copy the public IPv4 DNS, right? And remember that if you're using the Ubuntu AMI, then the user for since the private key file was our password, the user is Ubuntu itself, right? So when we go to WinSCP, right? So uh, it would ask you to type in the host name. It would ask you to type in the okay, yeah. Let me just show you. It would be much better. So it would ask you to type in the host name, the username, and the password. Now you don't have a password per se, right? So just paste your host name, that is the DNS here. Username is Ubuntu only. And in the advanced, go to advanced, right? And on the left hand side, there's a lot of uh, sub sub parts. Just go to authentication from SSH, then click on here to add on the private key file, right? Click on here, browse your private key file that you have just now created using the puttygen software. Click on open, click on login, right? So it would log in, and yeah, you can see that the we have a new session created, right? So what has happened here? On the left hand side, I have my local machine. On the right hand side, using SSH or just logging into your VM, we have the code base, or I would say we have the uh, folder structure, directory structure for the VM in the right hand side. So you can see I already also shifted my code too. But if you have to shift your code, all you have to do is go to the place where you have saved the my site, right? Where you have saved your project, then just drag and paste it here, okay? And click on OK. So it would transfer all the files here, right? It would might ask you for certain permissions too in between, so just click on yes. After it has done that, your files would be present here. Then if you want, you can close this or let it stay open. But the nice thing about this is that first, it was pretty easy to, just drag and drop things here. The next thing is that, let's say if you want to make some changes in requirement.txt file. So you can just double click and editor will be open, and then you can just make changes here. Let's say that you have made some changes here, control save, and then you can directly just close it, and you can see that some changes which were made are also now transferred to your VM, right? So the files inside your VM are now updated too. So this is a pretty good thing to have, and I'm going to delete this PEM file because you don't need this PEM file. Okay, that is particular for my VM. You would create and use your own one. Then if you want to make some other changes, like I told you about the .env file, right? You can even see that it is hiding the .env file. So if you want to find it, go to find files, type in the name, and then click start. You would get then just click on edit. So you can make changes here, and you know type in your DNS and IP addresses and your Django key. Okay, that would be done before only, but you can make changes here. Okay, once you have done that, just save and close the file, close this. So you are ready to go in terms of your code. Now setting up the code onto your VM. For that, we would start another connection using putty so that we can use the console and set up the code there. Again, you need to type in the host name, that is your DNS name, or even the IP address, that is fine too. Then you have to go inside the SSH and you have to go inside the auth. Then you have to again browse, select your PPK file, click on open, click on open, and now it's asking you to log in as who. So you are Ubuntu now, and you can see that my console has now initiated the login and I'm inside my VM now. Now using the command ls-a, I can see what all things are present here, right? What all directories, subdirectories, or files are present here. So I'm going to talk about some commands that are essential, and if you know about them, that's good because they help us in setting up our code. So the first command was only ls-a only, which lists out all the subdirectories or files from your particular directory. Then we have the pwd command, which tells you in which directory you are currently. Then we have the sudo command. Now sudo command is a super user mode command which gives you administrative rights. Okay, so the sudo command is preceded sorry, the sudo command is superseded by other commands like, let's say, pwd. So what happens is that, let's say after running the pwd command, it is telling me that I don't have the right to run this command. So writing sudo pwd, I would be able to run the command without any restrictions or errors. Okay. Then we have the nano command that opens up editor inside the Ubuntu. Okay, so let's say, okay, that is, yeah. So let's say I have to make some changes in requirement.txt. So I would run the command nano requirements.txt. Okay, so it has opened a terminal for me. I can make some changes here. Okay, then to close it, you have to type Control X. And if you have made some changes, it would ask you to, if you want to make the change or not, like a confirmation. So you just type in Y, and it would ask you to, if you want to save the file with the same name as before, type in enter. Okay. Then we have another command that is free-m. So it tells you how much memory your VM has, what is its capacity, how much is being used, what is free, right, or what is available. Then we have another command that is df, right, with the flag h. So it tells you how much space has been used, what is available for different parts of your disk system, right? So you can do that. Now, coming back to setting up our code, so you have to run a particular command that I'm going to show you just now. That command is where is it? Okay, that command is sudo. Yeah. So the thing is, you will even have the Python installed in your VM, right? You can see that the version is 3.8.10, but you won't have the pip installed for Python. So you need to copy paste it here and run the command. Okay. Now I won't be running this command because this will already tell me that I have the updated version of pip. But when you run this command, it would install all the files which are required, uh, actually download it and then install the pip for your VM. And in there, it would again ask you for a confirmation in between. So type in yes, and after some time, because it takes a little more time, it would uh, install the pip, and then you can use that pip to install your requirements. So once that has been done, we can move forward and go into the myset directory where the requirements.txt file is present. So you run in the command python 3 install -r, and I typed in incorrect spelling, install -r requirements require okay, what the hell, requirements.txt, right? Hit enter. And okay, yeah, so it already told me that I have all of these things installed already. Then it is asking me, okay, it's telling me that for lib pqdev, this version is not present. So I haven't installed this particular sub package or dependency, right? So okay, this is not really that important too, right? Because this is not gonna make any changes or make anything delay or create problems later on. So you can leave that as it is. But for you, it would start installing all the packages. But once that has been done too, then you have to run the command python 3 manage py make migrations. Okay, so you have to run that command. And once you run that command, okay, so yeah, for me it would say no changes detected because I have already run this command before. But for you, it would tell you that some uh, some tables that you have created are now instantiated for your code. Then you run the command migrate. Okay, and again it would tell you that it has created some tables or not. Okay, and then lastly you have to run the command run server, okay, which with the port also. So once you run this, again it performs a system check and provides you with the URL. You might be thinking what this is, right? So the thing is, I was printing all the objects that were present inside my database. Okay, so it's printing that I already have 3 objects present inside my database. So you might not be seeing anything here right now, but after running your site and uploading some files and rerunning the Python man.py run server command, you would be able to see that some of the files are now also showcased for you too. Okay, so you can just close this one and copy your DNS, go to a new, type in the port and then the home. So you can see that your site is now running, right? And you can click on upload a file here. Then I'm gonna say image 6. Then let's say I'm gonna take these 6. Okay, I'm gonna take 6 here and click on submit. So it's telling me that the digit is 6 for our image. So in this way, we were able to host our website, right? So with this, we have completed the last part too, which was hosting the web application we created onto AWS platform using the EC2 instance. Now we have completed the project. I'm gonna provide you with the data set, right? Even though you can load that data set through the TensorFlow library, I'm still gonna provide you the data set, and also I'm going to provide you some testing data too, right? Since I already have the testing data with me, so I'm going to provide you with that directory too. You can just set that up and use that testing data to see if your site is and your model is working as expected, right? So I hope you liked this project.